There is a moment in the journey of every chosen one where they look at their life and realize they cannot see it the same way anymore. The people they once chased no longer hold the same pull. The things they once feared no longer carry the same weight. The version of success they once wanted no longer satisfies the deep knowing of what they were actually built for. Chosen one, if your eyes have been changing, if the way you see everything around you has been quietly shifting, that is not confusion. That is the beginning of the next phase, and it is the most significant phase you have entered yet. Number one, changed eyes are the first sign that the next phase has already begun. Most chosen ones expect the next phase of their journey to announce itself through external circumstances. A new opportunity arriving, a door opening that was previously closed, a visible shift in the landscape of their life that signals clearly that something new has begun. They are watching the outside for the signal, but the signal always comes from the inside first. And the most reliable signal that the next phase has begun is not what has changed around you. It is what has changed in the way you see. When your eyes change, everything changes. Not in the circumstances immediately, in the interpretation of the circumstances. The thing that used to feel like rejection now reads as redirection. The season that used to feel like delay now reveals itself as preparation. The people who used to hold power over your sense of worth now appear as simply people, neither elevated nor diminished, just people who were part of a season that is now complete. The version of life you were chasing with such urgency now looks like the container you were in before you grew into your actual size. That change in seeing is profound. It is not cynicism. It is clarity. The kind that only comes from having gone through enough real experience to see past the surface of things and into the actual nature of what they are. And it is the signature of a chosen one whose internal formation has reached a specific point of completion, a point where the old frameworks for understanding life are no longer sufficient for the version of life that is now beginning. Your eyes have changed, and that change is the announcement that everything else is about to. Number two, what you can no longer unsee is protecting you from what no longer serves you. One of the most disorienting aspects of changed eyes is that they make going back impossible. The chosen one who has seen through the surface of certain relationships, certain environments, certain versions of success or belonging or validation cannot choose to unsee what they have seen. They can choose to act as though they have not seen it. They can choose to stay in the place or maintain the dynamic that the new seeing has revealed as misaligned, but they cannot return to the genuine not knowing. The eyes once opened do not close back to where they were. This is not loss. This is protection. The things you can no longer unsee are the things that were costing you more than you were able to calculate before the seeing cleared. The relationship dynamic that felt like love, but was structured around your perpetual smallness. The environment that felt like belonging, but required you to perform a version of yourself that was consistently less than true. The goal that felt like purpose, but was built on someone else's definition of what your life was supposed to look like. The pattern that kept repeating because you could not yet see it clearly enough to choose differently. The new eyes removed the protection of not knowing. And while that removal feels uncomfortable, because seeing clearly what was always there is not always comfortable, it is the most functional form of protection available to a chosen one entering the next phase. You cannot be pulled back into what no longer serves you by the version of you that could not see it clearly. The seeing itself is the safeguard. Trust what you can no longer unsee, chosen one. It is not bitterness or disillusionment. It is the wisdom that has been built in you through everything you have lived and that is now operating at a level of clarity that your earlier self did not have access to. Number three, the things that no longer excite you are falling away because you have grown beyond them. In the early stages of a chosen one's journey, certain things carry significant pull. Recognition from specific people, access to specific circles, achievement of specific markers of success that feel like evidence of arriving somewhere worth arriving. These things are not wrong to want in the season when they are wanted. They are appropriate to the level of consciousness and the level of calling that the chosen one is operating from in that season. But as the chosen one grows, as the formation deepens, and the understanding of their actual purpose becomes clearer, those early pulls begin to lose their force. The recognition from certain people stops feeling like enough of a reason to shape your choices. The access to certain circles stops feeling like the evidence of significance you once needed it to be. The markers of success that once looked like arrival begin to reveal themselves as waypoints rather than destinations, and the absence of the pull toward them can feel, if misread, like something is wrong, like you have lost your drive or your desire or your passion. Nothing is wrong. You have grown. The things that are no longer exciting to you are not exciting to you because you have genuinely moved past the level at which they were the right things to be excited about. Your ceiling has moved, and what was previously at the top of your capacity is now below the floor of where you are operating. This is not flatness or apathy. It is the natural result of significant internal growth. The chosen one who has grown past their old excitements has not lost their aliveness. They have simply arrived at the point where their aliveness is now connected to something deeper and more true than what connected to it before. What excites you in the next phase will be different from what excited you in the last one, and it will be more aligned with the full truth of what you are actually made for. Let the old excitements fall away without grief. What is coming to replace them is more real. Number 4, your tolerance for inauthenticity has dropped to nearly zero. That is a sign of the awakening. One of the clearest markers of the final awakening stage in a chosen one's journey is a dramatic reduction in the ability to tolerate what is not genuine. The performance of people, the conversations that skate along the surface and never arrive at anything real, the spaces where everyone is managing an impression rather than being an actual person. The dynamics where what is said and what is meant are consistently two different things. The social agreements that require everyone to pretend not to know what everyone already knows. These things were always there. They have always been part of the human social landscape. What has changed is your capacity to sit in them comfortably. The earlier version of you could participate in the performance when participation was required and set it aside without it costing too much. The current version of you finds the performance exhausting in a way that the earlier version did not. Not because you have become antisocial or difficult, because your system has been calibrated at a level of authenticity that makes the sustained pretense of inauthenticity genuinely draining. This recalibration is the awakening working in you. The part of the chosen one that is emerging in this final stage cannot operate at the frequency of sustained inauthenticity. Not because it is too good for ordinary human interaction, because it has been formed at a depth where the ordinary human interaction that is real and genuine and honest is the only kind that provides actual nourishment. The shallow kind does not nourish anymore, and the system that needs nourishment communicates that clearly through the exhaustion it produces in the shallow environments. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. And it is pointing you toward the specific kinds of connection and community and conversation that the next phase of your life is actually designed to be built on. Number 5, the relationships changing around you are not all losses. Some are completions. As the eyes change and the next phase begins, the relational landscape of a chosen one's life tends to shift in ways that can feel disorienting if they are all read as loss. People who were central become peripheral. Connections that felt solid begin to loosen. The dynamic in certain relationships changes in ways that make them feel unfamiliar, even when nothing dramatic has happened to explain the change. And the chosen one, who is in the middle of this shift, can find themselves grieving a series of endings without always understanding what ended or why. What is ending is not always what it appears to be. Some of what is shifting in your relational landscape is the completion of seasonal connections. Relationships that were real and meaningful and served an important purpose in a specific chapter of your journey, but that were designed for that chapter and not for the next one. The completion of a seasonal connection is not failure. It is the natural conclusion of something that accomplished what it was meant to accomplish. And the chosen one who can honor what was real about it while releasing what has become complete without forcing it to continue past its season is the one who moves through the transition with their integrity intact. Not all of the relational shifts are comfortable, but not all of them are losses. Some are the clearing of the landscape for what the next phase needs in it. Trust the clearing even when it is uncomfortable. What it is making room for is more aligned with who you are becoming than what is leaving was aligned with who you have already become. Number 6, the silence within you is not emptiness. It is the depth of the next level. One of the most consistent experiences chosen ones report in the final awakening stage is a quality of internal silence that did not exist before. Not the silence of disconnection or numbness, a deeper silence. The silence of someone who no longer needs the constant noise of external input to feel okay, who no longer needs to fill every quiet moment with stimulation or distraction, or the reassurance of other people's presence, who can sit in genuine stillness and find in it something that the noise never provided. This silence is one of the most significant markers of the awakening because it represents the arrival of a groundedness that is entirely internal. The chosen one, who was previously dependent on external input for their sense of stability and worth, has developed, through the full process of the formation behind them, an internal source of stability that does not require external feeding to remain real. The foundation has been built inside rather than on the outside, and the silence is the evidence of that foundation. Do not fill the silence, chosen one. Inhabit it, not passively. With the active, receptive, genuine presence of someone who knows that what comes in the silence is more valuable than what comes in the noise. The direction for the next phase, the clarity about what matters and what does not. The deepened knowing of purpose and calling and the specific next steps that only become audible when the noise drops away. The silence is the depth of where you are now. Receive it as the gift it is. Number 7. You are being repositioned, not punished. See the movement clearly. The final point of Part 1 addresses the experience that many chosen ones in this transitional stage misread most consistently. The repositioning. The sense that things are moving around in your life in ways that feel more like disruption than progress, that what was settled is becoming unsettled, that the familiar is becoming unfamiliar, that the ground that felt solid is shifting, and the new ground has not yet fully appeared. This movement is not discipline for something you did wrong. It is repositioning for what comes next. The chosen one whose internal formation has reached the level that yours has reached cannot remain in the same external position without the external beginning to feel like a misfit. The inside has changed, and the outside must reorganize to match it. That reorganization is uncomfortable, but it is purposeful. It is the external life catching up to the internal reality. It is the world around the chosen one beginning to reflect the version of them that the formation has produced. Stay with the movement, chosen one. Do not grab for the old positions because the new ones feel uncertain. The uncertainty is temporary. The repositioning is towards something more aligned with who you actually are now than where you have been was. And the next phase that is beginning is built on the foundation that the repositioning is revealing. It is beginning. Your eyes have already changed. Now watch what changes next. Number 8. The version of you that others remember is already outdated. There is a specific tension that chosen ones in this stage experience in their existing relationships. The people who have known them longest carry a version of them in their minds that was formed in earlier seasons, a version built from observations made when the chosen one was still in the middle of their formation, still uncertain about things they are now certain about, still responsive to dynamics they have now outgrown, still operating from a framework they have since completely replaced. Those people relate to that earlier version. They expect the responses of that version. They make predictions based on the patterns of that version. And when the chosen one whose eyes have changed responds differently from what the earlier version would have responded, it creates confusion, sometimes friction. Sometimes the accusation that the chosen one has changed in a way that is a problem rather than a growth. The chosen one has changed. That is accurate. But the change is not a problem. It is the entire point of everything the formation was building toward. The people who knew you in earlier seasons are not wrong to remember who you were then, but they are working with outdated information. And the chosen one who shrinks back into the earlier version to make those relationships more comfortable is the chosen one who betrays the formation they went through to become who they now are. You do not owe anyone the earlier version of yourself. Be patient with the people who are still catching up to who you are now. But do not return to who you were to accommodate their catching up. The current version is the real one, and it is the one the next phase requires. Number 9. The next phase requires a different kind of courage than the last one did. Every phase of a chosen one's journey requires courage. But the courage required in each phase is different in nature from the courage required in the one before it. The earlier phases required the courage to survive, to hold on through difficulty, to keep believing through the seasons of testing when the evidence for belief was thin. That was a real and costly courage, and it built something in you that cannot be taken away. But the next phase requires something different, the courage to expand, the courage to step fully into the size of who you have become without the self-protective habit of making yourself smaller to fit the spaces that were designed for the earlier version. The courage to let your full expression be visible rather than managed. The courage to receive what is coming toward you without the preemptive holding back that has kept you partially protected but also partially unreachable. The courage to survive and the courage to expand feel completely different. Survival courage is defensive. It is about holding what you have. Expansion courage is offensive. It is about stepping forward into what is being offered. And for chosen ones who have spent significant time in survival mode, the shift to expansion courage requires a genuine recalibration of the internal posture. The defenses that protected you in the hard seasons can become the walls that limit you in the abundant one. Lower the defenses that no longer need to be up. Chosen one. Not all of them. The discernment stays. But the holding back, the managing of how much of yourself is visible, the self-protection that was necessary then and is limiting now, that is the thing the next phase of courage is asking you to release. Number 10. The final awakening is not a destination. It is a doorway. Stage 2 of the final awakening is not the end of the journey. It is the opening of the next one. The eyes that have changed are not the eyes that have seen everything. They are the eyes that are now capable of seeing the next level of what was always there. The clarity that has arrived is not complete clarity. It is the clarity appropriate to this phase that will itself be expanded by the experience of living in the next phase fully. The awakening does not conclude. It deepens. Each stage opens a new level of seeing, of understanding, of alignment with the purpose that has been the through line of the entire journey. And stage 2, the final awakening that is beginning right now in your life, is not the closing of the story. It is the opening of the most significant chapter yet. Walk through the doorway, chosen one, with everything you have become, with the changed eyes and the earned depth and the hard-won clarity and the specific courage that the next phase requires. Walk through it as the fully formed, fully present, fully chosen version of yourself that the entire journey was building toward. The next phase is beginning, and it was always going to be magnificent. Number 11. What used to drain you is now simply something you no longer choose. One of the clearest signs that the awakening has moved into its next stage is a change in what costs you energy. In earlier seasons, certain things were draining, but you participated in them anyway. The relationships that took more than they gave but felt necessary to maintain. The environments that required you to be less than yourself but seemed important for your goals. The conversations that left you empty but felt like obligations you could not exit. You stayed in these things while feeling their cost. And the cost was high. The changed eyes of this stage produce something different. Not anger toward what was draining. Not dramatic exits or declarations about what you are no longer tolerating. Simply a quiet, clear, undramatic no. The capacity to look at what previously drained you and make a different choice without the guilt or the second guessing or the anxiety about what people will think of the choosing. The draining thing is still there. The difference is you no longer choose it. This is one of the most practical expressions of the awakening in daily life, not a spiritual experience that lives only in the interior, a lived reality that changes the actual texture of your days. The mornings are different because you are not bracing for what the day requires of the old version of you. The interactions are different because you are not managing the gap between who you are and who the environment needs you to be. The evenings are different because you are not recovering from the cost of spending a day being something other than what is true. Chosen one, the things that no longer drain you are the things you stop choosing. And the things you stopped choosing are the things the awakened version of you can simply see more clearly than the earlier version could. The clarity is the gift. The different choices are the fruit of it. Number 12. Your purpose is becoming more specific, not more general. In earlier stages of the journey, many chosen ones carry a sense of purpose that is broad, a general calling towards something meaningful, a direction that feels right without always being precisely defined, a sense of being made for something significant without always knowing exactly what that something is in its specific expression. That generality was appropriate to those stages. It was the right level of definition for the level of formation that had happened at that point. But in the final awakening stage, the purpose sharpens. It moves from the general to the specific. The broad sense of calling begins to narrow into concrete understanding of the particular expression that calling takes in this specific life. The things you are meant to build, the people you are specifically equipped to serve, the unique contribution that only your particular combination of gifts and history and perspective can make begin to come into focus in a way they did not before. If you are experiencing this sharpening right now, if the vague sense of larger purpose is beginning to resolve into something more concrete and specific, that is not the narrowing of your calling. It is the clarifying of it. A precise calling is more powerful than a general one because it directs the full force of who you are toward the exact place where that force is designed to land. The chosen one with a specific and clear understanding of their purpose is more effective than the one with a large but undefined sense of it. Lean into the specificity as it comes. Do not resist the narrowing because it feels like it is reducing the size of your impact. The narrowing is what makes the impact real rather than diffuse. And what becomes real and specific in this phase is what the world will actually receive and be changed by. Number 13. The people arriving in your life now are different from the ones who came before. Pay attention to why. As the awakening moves into this next phase, the people who appear in your life begin to carry a different quality than those who were present in earlier seasons. Not better people in a superior sense, different people, more aligned with the specific version of you that has emerged from the formation, more equipped to receive and reciprocate at the level you are now operating from, more genuinely interested in the real version of you, rather than a version that is easier to be around or more convenient to relate to. Pay attention to the quality of the connections arriving in this season. The conversations that go deeper faster than previous ones did. The people who seem to understand something about you without needing it explained at length. The relationships that feel aligned in a way that the earlier ones, even the good ones, did not quite achieve. These are the people of the next phase. And they are arriving now because you have become someone who can fully participate in the kind of connection they offer. There is also something else to pay attention to in the arriving relationships, what they reflect back to you about who you are now. The people the awakened version of you attracts are themselves evidence of what the awakening has produced. Look at who is drawn to you in this season, what they value, what they are building, what they believe. The reflection is accurate. The awakened you is drawing what matches the awakened you. And what is matching you now is the confirmation of how far the formation has taken you. Welcome what is arriving, chosen one. It is the relational expression of the stage you have entered. Number 14. The old version of your dream has been upgraded. Do not mourn the original version. Many chosen ones in this stage experience a specific kind of grief that is difficult to name. It is the grief of watching the version of the future they spent years imagining slowly reveal itself as something other than what they are actually being called toward. The specific dream that was held for so long, the detailed vision of what arrival would look like, the particular form of the life they were building toward. As the awakening clarifies, as the eyes change and the purpose sharpens, the original version of the dream begins to look like a smaller container than what is actually available. This is loss of a kind, even when what is replacing the original vision is larger and more aligned and more true. The releasing of the version that was held so specifically for so long carries a real grief. The chosen one spent years building toward a particular something and discovering that the particular something was only a waypoint, a step towards something larger rather than the destination itself, requires a grieving of the original image even as the new one is received. Grieve it briefly and honestly, chosen one, but do not stay in the grief. The upgraded version of the dream is not a punishment for outgrowing the original one. It is the natural expansion that comes from a formation that was always pointing towards something larger than the imagination of an earlier season could contain. The dream that has been upgraded is more yours than the original one ever was, because it is matched to the full version of you rather than the earlier one. And the full version of you is what the next phase is calling into expression. Let go of the original container. What is being poured into you now is too large for it anyway. Number 15. Standing at the threshold of stage 2 means the hardest part is already behind you. Here's the truth that chosen ones in this specific moment most need to receive. The fact that you are standing at the threshold of stage 2 of the final awakening is not the beginning of a harder season. It is the evidence that the hardest season is already complete. The formation that brought you here, everything you survived and everything you grew through and everything you chose when choosing differently would have been so much easier. That is behind you. That is done. You did it. And the you that did it is standing now at the beginning of the phase that the doing of it was always building toward. The next phase is not without its challenges. Growth never is, but the challenges of the next phase are different in nature from the ones that shape the formation. They are the challenges of expansion rather than survival, the challenges of learning to inhabit more rather than endure more. The challenges of the chosen one who is now moving into what they were built for rather than being built for it through difficulty. That shift from formation challenges to expression challenges is one of the most significant transitions in the journey. And you are standing at it right now. The threshold is real, the next phase is real, and the version of you that is ready to enter it has been made ready by everything that came before this moment. You survived what was hard. Now live what was always possible. The next phase is yours, chosen one. Walk into it. Number 16. The awakening asks one final thing of you before the next phase fully opens. Before the door of stage 2 opens completely, before the next phase becomes fully visible and fully accessible, the awakening asks one more thing from the chosen one standing at its threshold. Not a grand act of faith, not a dramatic sacrifice or a public declaration, something quieter and more personal than any of those things. It asks for surrender, the specific surrender of the remaining grip on the version of your life that the old eyes could see and the new eyes have already moved past. The last attachment to the outcome you had planned that is no longer the outcome being prepared for you. The final release of the need to know how the next phase will look before you step into it. The relinquishing of the control that the earlier version of you needed to feel safe moving forward. This surrender is not weakness. It is the most mature and powerful thing a chosen one can bring to the threshold of the next phase, because the next phase cannot be fully entered by someone who is still holding the blueprint of what they thought it was going to be. The hands have to be empty to receive what is being offered. And the surrender of the old blueprint is what empties them. Surrender it, chosen one. The old vision, the old plan, the old version of what arrival was supposed to look like. Open the hands. Let the new blueprint be placed in them by the one who prepared it with more precision and more love than any blueprint the old eyes could have designed. The door is opening. The eyes have already changed. And everything the next phase holds is waiting for the chosen one who is willing to receive it with open hands. Number 17. The final awakening is a beginning, not an ending. And what begins now is everything. Stage 2 of the final awakening does not close anything. It opens everything. The seeing that has been developing in you, the changed eyes and the sharpened purpose and the released attachments and the expanded courage, all of it is the equipment for what begins now. Not the conclusion of the journey, the commencement of its most significant expression. You have been in preparation for a long time. The preparation is not over, and it will not be in this lifetime, because the chosen one who stops forming stops growing, and the growth is part of the purpose. But the primary season of formation, the one that broke down the structures that needed breaking and built the foundations that needed building and refined the character that the calling requires, that season has reached a point of completion that allows what was being built to begin to be expressed. The expression is what begins now, the giving of what was given to you, the building of what you were equipped to build, the serving of the people who were always part of your assignment, the living of the life that the entire journey was pointing toward. Not as a finished product that arrived somewhere and now maintains a position, as a chosen one in full motion, fully awake, fully present in the purpose that was always theirs.